The billionaire's fiancée tore the maid's uniform. Then she saw the scar that silenced the entire mansion. The grand ballroom of the Hayes estate sparkled beneath crystal chandeliers. Soft violin music floated through the air as some of Greenwich, Connecticut's wealthiest families celebrated what was supposed to be the engagement party of the year. Champagne glasses clinked. Laughter echoed through the marble halls. No one imagined the evening would end in complete silence. It happened in a single heartbeat. Vanessa Cole stormed across the ballroom, her face burning with anger. She grabbed the maid by the collar and ripped the fabric from her shoulder. The tearing sound cut through the music. Conversation stopped instantly. Every guest froze. Vanessa smirked, believing she had just humiliated a housekeeper in front of the town's elite. But then, the torn uniform slipped from the woman's shoulder. A jagged crescent-shaped scar stretched across her collarbone, catching the light from the chandelier. Daniel Hayes suddenly turned pale. The champagne glass trembled in his hand. His breathing became shallow. He knew that scar. He had seen it once before. 11 years ago. Inside a hospital room he had spent every day trying to forget. Nobody inside that ballroom was prepared for what happened next. Emily Carter was 34 years old. For nearly 10 years she had worked as a housekeeper in some of the finest homes in Greenwich. She rarely spoke unless someone asked her a direct question. She always smiled politely. She hummed old church hymns while dusting windows or polishing the marble floors. 6 months earlier, Daniel Hayes had hired her through a housekeeping agency. He never asked many questions. To him, she was simply another hard-working employee. Emily was a widow. She was raising her 9-year-old son, Ethan, by herself in a tiny apartment across town. Money was always tight. Yet she never complained. She wore a delicate gold locket beneath her uniform every single day. Even during the hottest weeks of summer, she kept every button fastened to the top of her collar. The other staff often wondered why. Some believed she was simply shy. Others noticed something different. Every time Vanessa Cole entered the room, Emily became nervous. Her hands shook ever so slightly. She avoided eye contact. She always found a reason to leave. Nobody knew why. Daniel's 8-year-old daughter, Lily, adored Emily from the very beginning. Emily read stories to her after school. She baked chocolate chip cookies with her. She brushed Lily's hair whenever Daniel worked late. One afternoon Lily wrapped her tiny arms around Emily and smiled. "Your hugs feel just like Grandma's." Emily smiled back. But tears quietly gathered in her eyes. She quickly looked away before anyone noticed. Vanessa, however, noticed everything. She simply didn't care. She treated Emily as though she barely existed. She snapped her fingers whenever she wanted something. She purposely left dirty dishes and clothes scattered around the mansion just to watch Emily clean them. Whenever guests visited, Vanessa corrected Emily's grammar or pronunciation, laughing as the woman quietly apologized. One evening, Lily watched Vanessa deliberately knock an expensive crystal vase from a shelf. The vase shattered across the marble floor. Without hesitation, Vanessa pointed directly at Emily. She broke it. Daniel walked into the room just as Emily knelt to collect the broken pieces. "I'm so sorry," Emily whispered, even though she had done nothing wrong. Lily tugged gently on her father's sleeve. "Daddy." Daniel looked down. Emily didn't do it. He hesitated. He looked at Vanessa. Then at Emily. Finally, he simply sighed. "We'll talk about it later." Emily quietly finished cleaning the broken glass without saying another word. That hesitation stayed with Daniel far longer than he realized. Because he had no idea. The quiet woman polishing his floors had already changed his life years before. The night of the engagement party finally arrived. The Hayes estate looked like something from a fairy tale. Thousands of white roses decorated the entrance. Luxury cars filled the driveway. Reporters waited outside the gates hoping to photograph Greenwich's newest power couple. Vanessa wanted everything absolutely perfect. Tonight wasn't just an engagement celebration. It was her introduction as the future Mrs. Daniel Hayes. Hours before the guests arrived, she handed Emily a list of impossible tasks. Every room had to shine. Every table had to be flawless. Every flower arrangement had to sit exactly where Vanessa wanted it. Before walking away, Vanessa leaned close enough for only Emily to hear. "One mistake tonight. You're fired." Emily simply nodded. "Yes, ma'am." She worked without stopping for hours. As evening settled over the estate, hundreds of guests filled the ballroom. Music echoed through the mansion. Waiters carried silver trays loaded with champagne. Everything seemed perfect. Until disaster struck. One of the catering servers accidentally bumped another employee. A glass of red wine flew through the air. The crimson liquid splashed across the bottom of Vanessa's white designer gown. Gasps filled the room. Vanessa stared down at the stain. Her face twisted with rage. Without even looking at the caterer responsible, she slowly turned toward Emily. Emily had been standing nearly 10 feet away arranging dessert plates. Vanessa pointed directly at her. She did this. Every head turned. The room became painfully quiet. Emily blinked in confusion. I wasn't anywhere near." "Don't lie." Vanessa shouted loudly enough for the entire ballroom to hear. "You've been jealous of me since the day I arrived." Emily's voice trembled. "I would never." Before she could finish, Vanessa marched across the room. She grabbed Emily's uniform collar with both hands. Then, she yanked as hard as she could. The fabric ripped open. The sound echoed through the silent ballroom. And beneath the torn uniform, the crescent-shaped surgical scar became visible beneath the brilliant chandelier. Daniel Hayes froze. His heart nearly stopped. His hands began shaking uncontrollably. His champagne glass slipped from his fingers and shattered against the marble floor. His eyes never left the scar. He whispered only 4 words. "It can't be."